I would like to invite Mark Graham from the Internet Archive to give the closing keynote. And I don't think we need much words to introduce him. Everybody here knows who he is, but informally I will say that Mark Graham is the one that everybody wants selfie with. So without any more words, please.
Great, thank you very much. It's great to be here. So this is officially my first day in Israel. I'm still on my first day. So and it's been a fabulous day. I've been inspired by all of the presentations so far. I was taking notes, and there's opportunities for connection with every single presentation. This last session especially, any conversation that has to do with time travel and BBSs, I'm there for that. I think I was referred to as a dinosaur or something, I think maybe today, but okay, maybe I am, because I cut my teeth on BBSs back in the day. And now we run a time machine, so that's kind of fun. Alrighty, so let's get started here. So I'm going to talk today about universal access to all knowledge in the context of the Internet Archive. And so what does that mean? And really, universal access to all knowledge? That's kind of crazy. So that's the mission statement. It's the mission statement for the organization called the Internet Archive. It's a 21-year-old nonprofit based in San Francisco that was started by a visionary guy named Brewster Kahle. And I also want to call out Scott Fitzpatrick, who's here in the audience. And Scott was the first executive director of the Internet Archive 20 years ago. And I told him about this event. He's based here in Jerusalem, and he signed up for it a couple of days ago. So thank you for the work you did 20 years ago, helping Brewster get this thing off the ground. And Brewster had early success in the early part of the internet, back in those modem days, and found himself with a fair amount of money on his hand and most of his life ahead of him, and said, what should I do? What could I do to help the world? And universal access to all knowledge is the idea. Another idea is unlimited storage forever for free. And that's another of our maybe not our mission statement, but certainly what we do. But I also say that apart from that, we try to avoid superlatives, because that's kind of self-inflated and grandiose and all the rest of that. And that's kind of not how we are. We try to be very specific and practical. So this is the interface for the Internet Archive, as many of you know. I'm going to talk today about the web, but also touch on a few of our other media type, in particular music and books, television, and software. But we've got a lot of other media type as well that we could go into. And most of all, what I want to share is that I want to share that we're all in this together. And this conference is supposed to be about best practices and advancing the field of archiving and web archiving and national web archiving in general. And so to the degree to which I can help facilitate that by being here and participating with all of you, then that'll be a success. So here's some numbers just to get those out of the way. We got a lot of stuff, basically. We have a lot of other people's stuff. None of it's our stuff. It's just stuff that we found, stuff that we go out and get, those treasures that are out there, and stuff that people give us, things that people upload. Anyone can upload anything they want to the Internet Archive, and thousands of people do that every single day. And it all adds up to a whole lot of stuff. And it's a 40 petabyte right now, and that's multiplied at least another X, because we're pretty paranoid. So we write all of our stuff to hard drives. It's all available on spinning disks, but we also know that our building may just go away. And so we have everything written to 2 spinning disks simultaneously, so it's all available. And also, everything I'm going to talk about today is available for free. There's no advertising, and generally speaking, we don't track people. So we try to operate. We are a library, so we try to operate like one. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Wayback Machine, In particular, I want to note there that right to the logo, next to the logo, it says enter a URL, etc. We introduced search last year, so it's a site search based upon an analysis of the words in anchor text. So we evaluated trillions of anchor texts and came up with a way to find sites. We've also got a test going on right now with an advanced search, and I'm going to invite all of you to help me test it in a little bit here. I want to call out on the bottom right-hand side, Save Page Now. Many people are familiar and think that's how we get most of the seeds for the URLs that we go and archive. People enter about 2 million URLs a week into that link right there, which generates about 100 million URLs when we go crawl all of the embeds and everything. But in fact, we get our sources from many different places. And so I put this together for this, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time we've ever actually kind of showed this. Like, where do all these seeds come from, you know? Some people think, oh, it's just like either Save Page Now or this is one source. So I'm going to quickly just run through them. Wide crawls, we do about 2 a year. We're up to, I think, number 17. They tend to be very large and pretty deep and go for many, many months. We follow the IRC channels on more than 300 Wikipedia sites and follow all of the links and then the links referenced in those links that are made on those Wikipedia sites in near real time. We're talking many million a week. We get a couple of significant feeds from WordPress, both WordPress sites as well as the WordPress platform. So those feeds are coming in at the range of many million a week. Custom crawls are done where we do contract work, and I'll get to our contract work in a little bit. Moving to the left-hand side, Twitter, we follow the 1% random feed from Twitter. We're working on getting more than that, but that's what we have right now. It's about 4 million tweets a day. From those, we parse out URLs. That's another million or so a day. And from those, we parse out YouTube videos because we figure if someone tweets a YouTube video, it's a pretty good signal about that YouTube video because we can't archive everything, which is a problem I'll get to in a second, which is how we get a source for about 800,000 YouTube videos a week. Archive Team is a band of merry archivists. They're volunteers, and they've got their own language and their own software and their own ethics and everything. And they just go out there. When there's something going on in the world, you can rest assured that there are these folks out there that are going after to get all the stuff, to keep it all safe. And then they upload it all to our servers and make it available into the Wayback Machine. Survey crawls, they're kind of like wide crawls, except they tend to be really wide. Which is kind of contradictory, but very, very shallow. And then, so for there we maybe get like the first URL on a website, but a lot of websites, like hundreds of millions of them at a time. Top-level domain crawls, all of the top-level domains in a given country. Alexa Internet was the company that Brewster had founded more than 20 years ago and sold to Amazon, which is how Amazon has the name Alexa at this time for a popular voice device that many of us talk to a lot. And there was a deal struck back then with Jeff Bezos that forever Alexa Internet would donate its web crawls to the Internet Archive, and that goes on today. That's the only thing we're embargoing. We embargo those crawls for 6 months. Domain crawls are for a particular genre or special category. I already mentioned Save Page Now. Third parties, sometimes a third party will come along, maybe a search company that's going out of business, and they'll give us all of their archives. Amber and PermaCC are both out of Harvard, and these are specific pieces of software that are linked to academic publishing so that journal articles can be preserved. Top domains and top news are some hand-curated lists that are about what they sound like. NewsGrabber is a hand-curated list of news sites where the seed list is all on GitHub. You can check it out. You can add to it. Getting close to the end here, I promise you this is only one of 2 slides I'm going to do this on. We have more than 600 partners for our subscription service, Archive It, and they themselves have created seeds. So there's more than 6,000 individual crawls that are run as a result of hundreds of librarians and domain experts out in the world who have things that they want to back up. And Link Archiver is a cool little hack where if you follow a certain Twitter account, everything you tweet from then on in will be archived. So all told, this contributes to seeds that generate in the range of 1.5 billion URLs archived a week. We've archived 650 billion URLs so far. and we have about 500,000 people a day and come and use the Wayback Machine. There's millions of other people that come and use other things that we have at the Internet Archive. And last year, we introduced this cool feature, which is Providence. I should say, this is a new job for me. I've been doing this job for 2.5 years, and I didn't know really much about web archiving before I did that, although I've been accused of collecting a lot of stuff in my life, so it seemed to fit well. And when I first joined the job, Brewster said, Providence, you got to fix this Providence problem. And I really didn't know what he was talking about. But I figured it out, and so we've got this new button that allows one to look at a playback page. That's what we call when we replay a web archive, a playback page. And you can see every page element, and you can see a time date stamp on that. This is especially important if you were following any of the media press in the US this last week. There was an MSNBC commentator or host, Joy Reid, and I won't give you the whole story, but basically she may or may not have written some things in social media 10 years ago that she may or may not want to take credit for, and she may or may not have been hacked, and maybe the Wayback Machine was hacked. So there's been more than 50 stories about this in all the major press. Michael Nelson, who many of you know at Old Dominion University, gave an interview this morning on CNN. And so here's the segue. If you want to continue to follow on things that we're doing with the Wayback Machine, follow the Twitter handle Wayback Machine. And so this morning I tweeted to the Twitter account Wayback Machine a URL of the video of Michael Nelson on CNN talking about provenance and how it all fits together in the context of the Joy Reid issue that's going on right now. This was kind of fun. Annette made this paper about the North Korean web archives, and she used the provenance feature, which was fantastic. Because the other kind of theme that I want to get across here is that we think that a healthy archive is an archive that's used. So we try to the degree possible to not just keep other people's stuff in some dusty closet somewhere, but we want to get it out there. We want people using it. We want people kind of pushing the limits, come up with ideas of how we can make it better. And we ultimately, if the mission statement for the Internet Archive is universal access to all knowledge, the mission statement for the Wayback Machine is to help make the web more useful and reliable. And therefore, having people use it is a key part of that process. Anyway, the point here is simply that there's a lot of different sources of seeds for a lot of different archives, and they come together to make a more complete whole. And the on the top there, where it says Internet Archive or something, that was this archive that I set up for this particular collection. Where, okay, I'll give you the secret. The secret was someone said to me, Mark, how did you come up with those 43 sites to archive? And I said, I just Googled. A couple years ago, I have a personal interest in Korea, and I thought when I first took this job, I'll make an archive about North Korean websites. Because, I don't know, maybe I thought it hadn't been done before, but it turns out it had been done before. Anyway, so I Googled a bunch and I came up with a list, and we've got something like almost 90 million URLs archived there now. And so what are some of the challenges? This is the other list. Everything else is not like this, but I thought it'd be good just to at least highlight some of the challenges, and many of the presenters have hit on these today here. I'll go through them really quickly, but also reiterate at least 3 other people said the web's messy. So we seem to have consensus about that. It's big and it's messy. It's got lots of different media files. The media files, video, YouTube, Vimeo, etc. Grabbing them, indexing them. How do you grab it and keep it? How do you play back a YouTube video when the internal reference changes over time? For example, format changes. We got one coming up with Flash or other formats, and I'm going to talk about emulation in a bit. Social media itself is huge in scope and it's highly personalized. How do you figure out how to archive it or what to archive or whether to archive it, etc. There's issues of paywalls. I'll show an example of that. Firewalls, where maybe we can't even get to a website because it's blocked because of a firewall, a government firewall or a corporate firewall. Or maybe someone can't get to our archives because their government or other institution is preventing them from doing that. the size. The web is just huge. For prioritization, okay, let's make believe we could get everything. How do we figure out which things to get first? APIs. That's one where people build websites that have dependencies on APIs for third companies that go out of business. And then when you try to replay those web pages, they don't necessarily work right because, oh, Google Maps version 1.0 actually doesn't work anymore. The fact that the content is constantly changing. A news story, for example, published by the New York Times at 1 o'clock in the morning gets kind of radically changed at 3 o'clock in the morning. How does anyone know? They're all sleeping. There's some answers for everything that I'm talking about here today. I just want to give you an overview of some of the challenges that we face when we're doing web archiving, that we collectively face that when we're doing this. Robots.txt file, this was part of the Joy Reid story. I just say that, robots.txt are a file that web owners can put on their server that was invented more than 20 years ago, that's kind of like out of date at this point for the purpose at least in which it was invented, and it prevents or has prevented, or some people have thought that has prevented them from archiving things or making those things available, and that we over the last year or so have been relaxing the way we deal with robots.t exclusions, and generally speaking, I'll just say that we make a lot more things available today than we didn't make available even just a few months ago. Takedown requests, we get those every day. The Digital Millennial Copyright Act in the United States says that if you own content, then you can request that a platform takes it down, which gives us the protection to be able to gather everyone's stuff without having to worry about it too much. And then finally, I threw this one in last night in the context of, once again, this Joy Reid story, because one of the sub-stories that came out of it, also on the heels of a paper by someone last year at IEEE paper, and then also Michael Nelson gave a paper at that web conference on ethics in New York last month. It's been referenced earlier. There are theoretical attack vectors. There are ways that, in theory, if you kind of go like this and everything, at just the right time, you can make a playback be different than what the page archived was. And so we were given an advanced copy of a paper that Ada Lerner published. And in the weeks before she gave the paper, we went in and we mitigated most of the issues in that paper. But nonetheless, the idea that just as the weaponization of media, the idea that people can create false memories, false archives, and will probably try to do that, makes this something we should be paying attention to. Okay, so moving into kind of like some examples of the usefulness of all of this. Because we've been archiving a lot of Wikipedia, we had a lot of Wikipedia. We had a lot of the references, and I don't mean like Wikipedia itself, but I mean all the references in Wikipedia pages to other things that could be fragile. So we wrote a robot called Internet Archive Bot that has crawled on now more than 14 individual Wikipedia sites, identified more than 4 million broken links, and fixed those links, pointing to versions of those URLs available via the Wayback Machine. Why haven't we done all 288 or so of the language Wikipedias? Because it's a human problem and it's a technical problem. You actually have to get community approval on every individual Wikipedia site. It's challenging. If anyone here can help me with that, I would very much appreciate it. And then out of that work, and also some other work around robust links that had already been mentioned here, we've been iterating on this idea of the web itself being something that's ripe for versioning. That we think of the web, we've talked about the idea of archives today, we've talked about the idea of the live web. Most people live in the live web, but in reality, the web is a series of URLs, series of addresses that point to a space, and that space can have content. And that content can change independent of the URL changing, right? So unless you're referencing a particular time or a particular reference to the content, all you're referencing is an address, which is pretty sloppy, actually, if you think about it. It's kind of one of the fundamental design flaws. That and the lack of visible links and linkbacks has already been mentioned here. One of the fundamental design flaws of the web itself. So here's an approach to that where one can create a link. It happens to be decorated with a little triangle. You click on the little triangle, and you can see a drop-down where you can get multiple versions. So if someone makes a Wikipedia entry 10 years ago, and they reference a particular news story or a particular reference in they may be another Wikipedia story, and they want to be able to reference that exact content, here's a mechanism for them to be able to do that. I just noted the Yiddish Wikipedia has 23,000 links 5,000 of which are broken. I actually didn't believe it when we ran the analysis, but I started spot checking it, and it seems right. So I want to fix that, and just throw that one in here. Okay, here's another reason why you should all subscribe to the Wayback Machine Twitter handle. Because yesterday I tweeted out a link to a report by an organization in Canada called Citizen Lab. And they published a paper documenting how governments around the world are blocking access to websites. So this fits in the category of, why is this important? Why should we bother to back this stuff up? It's not just because we want to be able to provide access to this material for people in the future. It's because we want to help provide access to this material for people in the now. Like a major parts of the world, we just can't get to where you're trying to get to via the web, but maybe you can get to it if we spread this stuff around. And by the way, I'll just throw in here, one of the other projects that we're pursuing at the Internet Archive is called the Decentralized Web Summit. We had our first one 2 years ago with people like Tim Berners-Lee and Vint Cerf and some of the younger people that are reinventing the web. And we're going to have a Web Summit 2.0 coming up in a couple of months. So if any of you want more information about that, come in and talk to me. So I just want to give you some examples, some real-world, relatively recent examples of where content is currently not available to people. After the failed coup in Turkey, they shut down many media organizations. There was YouTube and Facebook regularly respond to pressures from governments to remove information. Some of it may be information that could be useful in court proceedings and in other applications. Egypt blocks access to more than 40 news sites. I don't want to give the impression that I'm calling out necessarily certain countries here. There's enough of this bad action that happens all over the world. I could go on and on. I just picked some that are recent. Here's an interesting one. So probably the US government pressured YouTube to remove videos from North Korea. Probably. We don't know exactly why. Maybe it's because the United States government considers North Korea has a terrorist organization and there's law about that. I don't really know. I don't know the circumstances. All I know is that a whole lot of YouTube videos from North Korea were removed. I also know that North Korea removed YouTube video, removed videos, removed information, removed news articles, tens of thousands of them, about Kim Jong-un's uncle after he was killed, after he was executed. So here you got the government of North Korea erasing their history, and then you got other governments around the world preventing us to have access to the collective history. Here's an interesting one. There's a guy in America named John Bolton, who's now got an important role in the US government. And he wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago making the legal case for the first strike attack on North Korea. And I heard that when I was driving home, and I went home and I Googled and I found the URL, and I went to the URL, and this is what I saw. I saw that I couldn't read the article. I saw that it had been published in a major American newspaper, but it was behind a paywall. Now, in this particular case, I actually do give the Wall Street Journal $32 a month. So I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. So I went in with my account into Save Page Now. I archived that page, and then I tweeted about it. So that was just a little act of civil obedience, maybe. I don't know. And but it kind of demonstrates this point that there are often barriers between us and information that might be useful to us. And then I'll just end, I think, with this one. This is the only, maybe there's a couple more. I think this is the only known capture of a social media post by a rebel fighter claiming responsibility for shooting down an airliner that probably was MH17. Okay, there's a couple more here. Got to talk about Trump. Sorry about this. But, so here's the deal. This guy was a reality TV star in America. Okay, fine. But then what really got the press to pay attention to him over and over and over and over again was that he said that our president, Barack Obama, hadn't been born in America, right? And that was the lie that he was peddling. And he talked about it all the time, the birther movement. And there it is. That's on his official biography, right there. He's saying it. Yeah, I did it. Thank you very much. Now you don't see it. It's gone. So this is the Donald Trump. Now you see it. Now you don't. Official biography. Where no. I had nothing to do with that. Nothing. It's on to bigger and better things. So, And I think maybe this is the last one. So and General Michael Flynn posted about Hillary Clinton and sex crimes with children. He did this just before the last election, and this tweet was taken down. But there it is, preserved. It looks like we had 77 captures. If I went in on the right-hand side and pressed that Providence button for every one of the captures, I bet that probably most of them were people doing Save Page Now. So people basically like citizen archivists. Yeah, never said that. I was going to say, yeah, that's a good term, citizen archivists. Okay. Oh, and this one here. So there was another story of the U.S. that the Washington Post won a Pulitzer Prize for a series of stories last week about Rory Moore, a politician in America who was had a questionable background, shall we say. And so there was this person who she put up a GoFundMe page about how she was going to raise money to do sting operations against the mainstream media. And what did she do? She tried to do a sting operation against the mainstream media and using her real name, and her real name was in this. And so we have kind of strong evidence of who she was, and the Washington Post didn't fall for her sting and exposed the whole thing. To the best of my knowledge, this is the only, these 11 archives are the only archives, and the first archive was done before it was public, and I'm pretty sure the Washington Post made this archive, I don't know like fact, using the Save Page Now. So that's the way that journalists are using the Wayback Machine. Okay, a little bit more about what the Internet Archive does in terms of crawl services. These are a variety of services that we provide to institutions as opposed to individuals. Domain crawling, indexing. Archive It is the subscription service that I mentioned. That's the front page for it. There's more than 600 institutions that subscribe for this service. This is a pay service, and then they can do their own seed generation, selection, and archiving. And then there's a variety of things that can be done from the archives that we create. For example, one could create a bespoke portal for a given domain. Oh, I don't know, like maybe a country. And it could contain maybe all the archives that are from that TLD for that country. Maybe we do a survey based on language, so we bring in archives from languages relative to that country, etc. This one happens to have a full-text search system for it as well. I would like to have a full-text search system for the Wayback Machine, but the Wayback Machine right now is it's too big. It's about 22 petabyte, and I just don't have enough horsepower to index it all. So we're working on that. Maybe in a few years. And then this is a quick little count I did of the top-level domain for Israel and what we have in the Wayback Machine right now. But obviously, if I also did a search for all of the web archives that we have that are in Hebrew, that would be much, much larger. So this would be only a small. I see some people taking pictures. So I can make these slides available, and I just got to show this picture because it's so cool. There's a woman named Erin Gallagher who I really wish was with us here today, and what she does is she does network analysis of messaging and social media, and what this is basically showing, all the colors here, is how a tweet can propagate out on a network. And the reason I'm showing this in this context is because of context, that we can look at an individual event, an individual post, an individual tweet, and we can learn something. But in many cases, we can learn a lot more if we look at the aggregation of many tweets at once and or over time. And that really can only be done if you have an external system that's doing that kind of recording, or at least analysis and recording and presentation of the metadata. Here was something that I threw together last year. I saw this graph. It's a radial tree graph, and I thought, that's a pretty graph. I wonder if we could do something with it relative to web archiving. And so I thought, okay, yeah, if we aggregate all of the archives that we have for a particular website. Now, I'm not saying a web URL now, but a whole website, in this case, iskmi.org. And then we group them together by year. We'll bucket them by year. We can construct a web map, basically a site map of a website. It's incomplete in that I might not have archived all of the URLs on that website in a given year, but it's more complete than anything else that I'm aware of to do exactly this. So you can go to the Wayback Machine right now, and you can make a sitemap for any of the websites that we have available there. And this is one of those projects where I love to continue to iterate on it a little bit more. And I'm going to try using the fancy laser beam. Yeah, it's too fancy. So there we go. Okay, so that little thing right there, that's an extension. It's called Wayback Machine, because we're not very good at branding. And that's available for Firefox and Chrome and Safari and Edge and Brave. And there's lots of cool features there. And it also will intercept 404s and about 15 other error conditions. So you're cruising along on the web, you hit a 404, it'll do a real-time lookup in the Wayback Machine, and if we have a copy of it, you'll be presented with an option to see a version via the Wayback Machine. And I love it, not just because my team built it, but it's cool, it works, you know, and we get 404s all the time. All right, we love books. Okay, so that was kind of it on the web. I may have a few more things to say about the web. Books, we love books. So we get this idea, a few ideas. One idea is that every book ever written, at least 120 million of them, will be digital at some point, right? Another idea, that if a book isn't digital, for almost everyone, I mean like almost everyone in the world, it kind of means it doesn't exist. If you don't have physical access to it, how can you benefit from it? So we want to fix this fundamental problem. So we're taking it in baby steps. We got some bigger ideas. One of them is openlibrary.org. This is a public-facing website. It was actually built by the late Aaron Swartz, who some of you may know was the first CTO of the Creative Commons and a bit of a legend in the internet and in the open source Creative Commons and open culture world. In any case, it contains metadata about digital books. We've got about 4 million digital books available right now, but the bigger idea, as I said, that we think that everyone deserves the right to access everything that human beings have created, all the knowledge that we've created, and the ability to use all of this to learn throughout our entire life, and that every physical book is a digital book that's just waiting to happen. So we've come up with this idea. We called it controlled digital lending, because we're not pirates. We respect law, and we respect intellectual property, but we also respect the idea and the magic of format change. If I've got a physical book, and I digitize that book, we think that I should be able to take that and lend it to somebody. If I'm a library, I got a physical book, I take the physical book off the shelf, I'm gonna lend out a digital version of that book. All I'm doing is changing the format of the book. Use digital rights copy management on it, encrypt it, whatever you have. You do it on a 2-week lend, just like you would the physical book, and people will get more benefit from it. So that's the idea. We're currently working with a number of libraries to pilot test this. And we've got some demos of it available. I could talk on and on and on. Yes? The publishers will say, thank you very much, because we bought a copy of the book. We bought a copy of the book. And we're working with the Authors Guild. And the authors got paid. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of literature that suggests you can make more money by giving stuff away. Yeah, I mean, this is a much larger conversation, and certainly open to debate. But nonetheless, the point is, we're not talking about making multiple copies of something that's already been paid. We're talking about taking something that we've already paid for and making it available to people in a different format. So that one physical book is equal to one digital book is the basic idea. And that right now we're providing digital access to 4 million books. And many of these books are in the public domain, I should also say, too. And there's no question about that, before 1923. And then in coming months, all the books in 1923 will be available as well. And if they're not, they're available to be lent out 1 copy at a time. But what else can you do with this basic idea? Well, one thing you can do is you can supercharge this notion that everything that people reference in a digital book, in a website, in a journal article, should be linkable to the actual thing that's being referenced. So here's an example of a reference with no link. So I'm reading it, and I see that, and I go, oh, abuse of power, page, I don't know, I gotta go find that. How do I find that? Well, what if it was a link? And then you can click through and go right to that page. Now, this isn't a novel idea that I'm sharing with you here, but what is a little novel is the idea of doing this at scale. Right, so we're working with the Wikimedia Foundation and many Wikipedia sites to do this at scale, and we've actually used books cited in Wikipedia sites as one of several sources to prioritize the next million books that we're going to buy and or have donated to us and digitize and then make available. One at a time, one at a time. That's all it's gonna be. Or here's an example where we can make a widget of a book and insert a widget of the book into another kind of reference system. And what do we do after we finish digitizing the books? Remember I said we're paranoid? We store them. So we got a physical archive in addition to our church where we work. It's in a separate building in a separate part of the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's filled with shipping containers, and the shipping containers are filled with pallets, and the pallets are filled with boxes, and the boxes are filled with books. All right, turning a 78 digital file, turning a 78 into, anyone know what a 78 is? Even a few people, okay. Well, I brought one with me here. So, all right, this is a 78. It's like an LP, but it's not. It's heavier and older, very popular in the 20s, 30s, 40s. It's made out of shellac, which is from beetles, actually. So, you know, you can't really do anything with this, right? You can't put it on a regular turntable. Who even's got turntables anymore, much less a 78 turntable? Okay, but what we do with something like this 78, we basically take it and we put it on a turntable with 4 different diamonds. I won't go into all that. A scanner, so we get the physical, the image, and we produce like an audio file, we produce an image file, we produce HTML and metadata, and then the file through servers and the cloud can make it available through connected devices. So here's the part where I had great sympathy for all the Macintosh users. So I ditched all of my video, but I'm gonna try something different. Hey Google, ask the Internet Archive to randomly play jazz 78s.
I couldn't verify your voice, so I can't. You can either try again or verify your voice match settings in the Google Home app.
I could have done that part. All right, it's okay. You get the idea. It should have started, we'll do this later. It should have started playing the music. That's what would have happened here.
Try again.
Well, it has to know my voice, and I gotta do something else with it here. So this is yeah. Just hey Google, what time is it?
Okay, Google.
Okay. What?
Okay, the time is 7:45.
That was a hard question, wasn't it? Yeah. All right. So anyway, I assure you it works. And so that's live today. So hey Google, Internet Archive is live today. We have more than 3 million songs that are available, live concerts and 78s, and more than 60,000 78s. And the Boston Public Library just gave us 200,000 LPs and 78s. We're going to digitize all of them as well. Television news. We've been archiving 60 television news channels for 9 years. We've got more than 1 million hours archived. There, you can search for them. You can do full text search based upon closed caption. Then you can do analysis because we can now treat video as data. It's no longer this ephemeral artifact, but it's something that you can actually do math on. And we can compare how Fox, MSNBC, and CNN were covering issues like references to Stormy Daniels, for example. So if ever you doubted, there's some of the data. We also work with many fact-checking organizations and provide a way that a snippet can be taken and then you can do fact-checking on it and then link directly to the fact checks. Here's kind of an interesting one where we were taking little clips, sound clips from debates, and then we're doing a digital signature on them, and then we're searching out on other television shows to find out how maybe a little phrase that Hillary Clinton had mentioned in a debate, found out where that was being covered, how that was being covered, etc. So it's kind of like doing, you know, wide area full text searching on video using this concept of digital fingerprints. We also archive software. I was especially interested in that last session, you know, talking about this. This particular collection has almost 67,000 pieces of software titles in it. But what's cool about this is it's not just, okay, the upload of the software, but with, like Prince of Persia, for example, but we can play the software because we've written emulation software for Atari, Commodore, Amiga, Sinclair, Windows 3.1, Apple II, etc. And you just basically press the button in the middle and you can start playing the game. Isn't that cool? Yeah, so you can like play Pac-Man right now. You can play Oregon Trail. That's always a crowd pleaser. Early Nancy, I don't know. We can go try that one. But there you have it here. Okay, back to the web a little bit. Here's some other interesting things we've done with the web. We've been collecting academic papers. So this is an interface, it's experimental, into 5,000 academic papers that are available via the open, these are open access. And I typed in web archiving, I think, and all of the PDFs right there you can get to right now. There were many of them available. This was kind of whimsical. Since we archive a lot of the web, we archive a lot of military websites. We archived, well, more than 60,000, that number's not right there, but more than 60,000 PowerPoint presentations from military websites. What would you do with that, you might ask? Well, one night in our church, we invited in a few hundred people, and we had PowerPoint karaoke with military PowerPoints. And so people got up, brave people, much braver than myself, got up on stage and gave complete PowerPoint presentations to military PowerPoints that they had never seen before. And most of them were really funny, which in a kind of macabre kind of way. But you can also search for peace. There's an archive that we made of GIFs, for example, of GIF files. And we've got millions and millions of GIF files. The message that I want to give here is that I want you to come experiment with us, come explore with us, if you will. One of the other things I tweeted out at that Twitter handle, Wayback Machine, right? Because I'm giving you all these reasons to subscribe to Wayback Machine. Is one of my favorite interfaces for the Wayback Machine is a time machine. And it does that whole time machine view, and you zoom through it. And I gotta get the Star Wars music to go with it, and that would complete it. But it's kind of cool. And but this is a gallery that we have of experiments that either our staff have done, or we've had hackathons and people have done. And you know, our APIs are publicly available. We have a Slack channel. I've got about 150 people in a Slack channel called Wayback Labs G. So that's just people who are interested in helping to make the Wayback Machine better, or learn about web archiving, or learn about our tools so they can use our tools for their own archive projects, etc. So please, if you're interested in working with us, contact me and I'll give you access to that. That's that Slack channel. The what? I'm not sure what you mean, but the papers that I mentioned there were all publicly available. So as I noted earlier, anyone can upload anything they want via that link right there. You know, overall, I think that I just want to close with this, and I know I have some time for some Q&A. But you know, I think why are we doing this? And I think that we have a collective responsibility as a people, as a culture, as a species, really, to remember our past. And you know, the web and digital media and AR and VR and all the rest of that, and the social media, it's where most of the human experience is recorded these days. And in many cases, these media and some of the emergent media of a few decades ago is extremely fragile. And so we have I think we have a responsibility to do what we can to try to preserve it. For not only for now, as we noted earlier, and to help hold those in power accountable, but also for future generations to learn from. And you know, Brewster, if he was given his talk, he would probably end it with something like, you know, what are the libraries known for? They're basically known for being burnt down. And the Library of Alexandria and others, usually burnt down by governments. But maybe if there had been multiple copies, maybe a copy in China or a copy in India or in other kind of places, we'd have the other works of Aristotle and the other plays of Euripides. And I'm thinking now, you know, in the age of social media, you know, maybe if we keep track of what's going on and take good care of it, then in the future we'll have all the rap songs of Adiva and all of the beautiful blog posts of Joel that might otherwise not be available for future generations. So come visit us. That's what our church looks like. We work downstairs in the Sunday school. This was an event that we held honoring the life of John Perry Barlow. the co-founder of the Electronic Frontier Foundation and a lyricist for the Grateful Dead. And that's Edward Snowden. He beamed in on it. So all sorts of people come visit us. And I'd like to encourage you to come visit us as well. And that's some of our team. This guy right there, that's Brewster, and that's our senior engineer, and that's part of our collections, etc. And these little guys, they're us. After you've worked at the Internet Archive for 3 years, you don't get a big chunk of stock, you get a porcelain statue. So I'm looking forward to my porcelain statue. There we go. Thank you very much.
Yes. Zippy.
Hi, thanks. It was a very remarkable presentation. You mentioned that if knowledge or things that you have in the Wayback Machine is not accessed, it's kind of doesn't exist. Well, I'm thinking it's so big, and you have all those collections and things. Do you have some methods of tracking those links that are not being visited and those things that are not being, which were archived but are not being seen?
I want to clarify a couple of things. I think what I was suggesting was that if a book is not digital, it is for many of the people in the world as if it doesn't exist because it's just physically not available to them. You know, if you're in a physical location where you don't have a library and you just can't get access to the physical book, and if you can't get it online. With regard to the idea of a healthy library as a library that's used, I think that was the idea I was trying to get across. You know, that's not necessarily a common idea in archiving per se, but it's at least something that we pay attention to a lot about, and we didn't in the beginning part of the archive. In the beginning part, the first, back when you were working with us, Scott, I don't think use was really part of the languaging. It was about, let's just start preserving this stuff. I mean, first things first, preserve it, you know, and then we will have the luxury to be able to help make it available to the people. But I'll say two more things about that. One is that the reason, you know, I was trying to show off this voice interface here, or the reason we have an iOS app and an Android app, or the reason we have APIs, or the reason we're building some of those other interfaces that we have is because we think that people can get more use and value from the archives that are available. The reason that we care about format changes is because we understand that if we don't pay it, if something's not used, then we might not realize when it can't be used anymore for a variety of technical and other reasons. But just one other thought here is that I don't think that, you know, popularity is necessarily a good indice of importance. And I think, you know, certainly the top results from many search results in the world would tell us that. You know, the things that Google or others may tell us on the first page are the, you know, right answers to something. It may be popular, but it may not be, you know, the quote-unquote right answer. So yeah, we of course look at log files. We of course pay attention, but more important, attention to the usability of what people are doing and encouraging people to I'm just going to unplug it. There we go. Encourage them to give us direct feedback, which I encourage all of you to give us direct feedback.
I love the sitemap feature.
Thank you.
It's a direct feedback.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Can you? Hey, can you help it? Can you help us make it better?
Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Success.
Hello. Let's say I want to reuse some of the materials on the Wayback Machine or the Internet Archive. Is there a way for me to know whether something is on the public domain, or can I look for things specifically in the public domain?
So it depends. People who upload things may attach explicit licenses to those things. Yeah. Yeah, I mean the web. It's, you know, it depends. There's the Wayback Machine and what's available there, and then there's the web. In books, there is metadata relative to that. But I'm not a lawyer, and we're not lawyers. And you know, when I go to a library, I don't ask the librarian the things that are in the copyright or not. I mean, the libraries are mostly full of copyrighted stuff. So. Yeah, I'd say no, probably I can't give you a definitive answer to that question. It has to be on a case-by-case basis.
Can I see if someone uploaded their own material? What?
So it depends. If people want to be anonymous, they can be anonymous, right? So, but if people want to be public, I mean, for example, things that I have posted, generally, it's public, and you can, if something is there, you can look at the metadata. We have a pretty common structure: archive.org/details/whatever, archive.org/metadata/whatever, and you can see metadata. You can see the JSON, you can see histories and all the rest of that. It's pretty transparent. And the APIs for you then to be able to do analysis on these things is pretty transparent. Back to Wayback Labs G, part of the reason I created it was I thought that there was value in the community helping each other along. So there was some people that did these really good studies. This woman came, she was like 20, and she was like a student, and she came for we have this lunch every Friday. Okay, let me back it up. We have this lunch every Friday at the Internet Archive. You're all invited to it. And it's our staff meeting, but people come in from the community. Many times students come in. So this 20-year-old student came in, and she had an idea of something to do with the Wayback Machine. And I said, that sounds fantastic. And sure, go for it. And by Monday morning, she wrote the code. She wrote a Medium article about it. And she had the output of the code all working. And so that inspired me to go make this Slack channel and then take all of that she had done and pin it to the channel. And then some other person made another study, and I pinned all of his stuff. His was kind of cool. He did an analysis of Craigslist ads. He scraped all the Craigslist ads for a given period of time, pulled out the ones that had to do with rentals in San Francisco, and produced a whole paper about the trends in rental prices in San Francisco based upon, scraping ads from Craigslist. So all the code for all of that, he published all the code, and people shared it with each other. So now when new people come in, when you come in and say, hey, maybe I want to try to do something, I want to write a paper, I want to use some of your data, I don't have to try to help them do it myself. I can go, well, the first thing you should go look at this work that Julia did, or this work that Richard did, or things like that. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So I researched Wikipedia, and I was just interested if you could tell me a bit more about, because I've seen the bot work.
Yeah.
So I've gone into edit histories and then see it to run through. It's just I'm interested in your interface with them, and both around this specific project and also historically.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued.
I mean, the relationship predates me, so I can't take ownership for it, but I can say that, I've personally been involved in it for 2.5 years, and I work with many people at the Wikimedia Foundation in San Francisco. I've attended the Wikimedia conference, with a couple thousand people. I'm on Wikipedia channels or, mailing lists. I work with key people in the Wikipedia community, right? Because the foundation takes care of the software, but the community takes care of all of the content. And to get things done, you may or may not have to involve both parties. On the engineering side, robots are treated like humans, and they have to be approved by the community, and they got to be approved by the foundation. So it's a fairly complicated process, and every Wikipedia site is different. Some Wikipedia sites, we put up the proposal, we want to run our software, it's fine, no problem, boom. Germany, little harder. Okay, there it went on for several months. There was a vote, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not making that up. It's actually but it varies, from language. They're not countries; they're languages actually. So the languagepedias, as I'm sure you know, yeah. I'm sure the Hebrew one will be a joy to work with. Wonderful. It'll be a sweet experience. Yes.
I'm just curious. You have that link where you can
The
have
versions?
it, the save a page, right?
Yeah, save page now.
Okay, and then you have the archive team, which collects whole sites and whole series of sites.
Yeah.
But there's not a way for an individual to save.
There isn't. Good point.
I'm just.
Are you reading my to-do list? Yeah, that's. We're working on. Right, we have on the one hand we have save page now. On the other hand, we have Archive It, where institutions can subscribe and pay us money, and we'll do archiving on their behalf. And in the middle, but I will tell you that there are 2 million URLs submitted every week into Save Page Now. I guarantee you.
Which are not seeds, though.
No, they're not seeds, and they're not reoccurring. But my point here simply is this: I guarantee you that some number of them are people who have painstakingly gotten all the URLs for a given website or a section of a website that they want.
I've done that. It's a pain in the neck.
Yeah. So I feel your pain. I hear your call, and I'm working on it. Seriously, yeah, I call it Save Site now. It's yeah. I'm not making a promise. I'm just saying that we're working on it. We try not to make promises of things we haven't done yet.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, Daniel.
I have a question. A few years ago, I went to the Internet Archive to San Francisco, and everyone, since the customs guy to young professors, to young students, old professors, everyone knew the Internet Archive. How did you achieve this?
You know, what do they say? If you grow old, like if you don't die, that's it. You don't die, right? Then you get to live a long time. That's it, right? So I don't know. We just been doing it. First, we have a generic name, right? Internet Archive, like internet, okay? Archive. I don't know. When Brewster had this idea 21 years ago, it was kind of novel, and you know, some people said you can't do it. You're going to go to jail. Smart people. Some people said, who the heck would want to do that? I mean, you know, it's crazy, stupid. Some people said, you're not going to go to jail. It's not a crazy idea, but it's too big, you know. Anyway, so the point was, I don't know, you get in early on anything often, and that's an advantage. So first mover advantage, generic name, passionate visionary person who continues to run it to this day, Brewster. A team of passionate, dedicated, talented people, the engineers on our teams that actually make all this stuff work. The fact, okay, I'm going to turn it around a little bit. Sorry. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to say, well, because there's not a lot, and I don't mean this in disrespect at all, please. There's not a lot of other big digital archiving projects happening on the planet that aren't being done by, someone said earlier, their intelligence agencies. Okay? So yours stands out, you know, in Portugal, and someone asked you that, right? You said, well, why Portugal? And part of your answer was, oh, we're not a national library. I didn't have to have permission from X to do Y. Well, we have that luxury too. Maybe it's because the fundamental model of this idea, the thinking that, well, because the national libraries have this permission to get all this stuff, they're the natural agency in a given country to do it. Well, maybe they're not. Actually, maybe in fact that permission is a liability. Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. I think Niels has something to say about that.
Just a small question. First, I want to thank you for Internet Archive. So there's a great collection of Chinese websites there. Since the Chinese National Website Archive is not used for, then want to ask: has the Chinese authority ever raised any conversation with you? For instance, like to ask you to delete some of the resources, or they just block you without any notice because the Wayback Machine is currently blocked in China.
Like many large websites, the Internet Archive is generally not available in China. Yeah.
Yes, maybe just to follow up on Daniel's question, it's maybe a hard question, but still, let's throw it out. Because you said that one of the reasons for the success of the Internet Archive was that you didn't die, which is good. But
so far, yeah.
looking at Brewster,
yeah,
it's a younger.
That's a younger Brewster, right? Yeah.
And now he's even older. So just have you started thinking about how you sustain this in the
yes,
long
of course
term?
we have. Yes, yeah. I
say
mean, and when it is part of the conversation. As you know, as we're getting into our 20s now, so you know we're getting past our adolescence as an organization. There's a cadre of nonprofit tech organizations in the San Francisco Bay Area: the Creative Commons, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Wikimedia Foundation, the Mozilla Foundation, etc. That we are part of a cohort of. That we do some joint scenario planning around and things like that. And absolutely, institutional longevity is one of the things that we're now starting to put a little more attention to. But we also work with organizations like the Long Now Foundation, for example, which somebody mentioned the Whole Earth Catalog earlier, and Stuart Brand, and folks like that. People who actually that's their mission. Their mission is to help us all think long term. So we're trying to take some counsel from some of the examples that they're putting forth. But I think it's probably something we'll put even more effort into in the coming years. But also, with work we're doing around the decentralized web, maybe part of the answer is we're doing this because Brewster thought, those of us who are doing it think somebody needs to do it, right? So we're going to do it. But gosh, if we didn't have to do this stuff because technology was different or whatever, then that's great. We could just declare success and relax a little bit. I don't know. Scott.
Take a little credit for the fact that two of the talks this morning very clearly showed that they got off the ground with a transfusion from the Internet Archive.
And they're healthy.
Can you do that in 32 countries?
Probably, sure. I'm here, we're here because we want to have conversations and be helpful to people.